Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the UE's Discovery, watching the blue-green planet grow larger on the main screen. 3 years of travel through deep space had brought them to this moment. First contact with an alien race. "Sir, we're getting a signal," said Lieutenant Amy Davis from her station. "It's not like anything we've seen before." Jake walked over to look at the strange patterns flowing across her screen. The signal pulsed with soft colors that seemed to dance and shift. It was beautiful, unlike the harsh radio waves humans used to communicate. "Can you decode it?" Jake asked. Amy shook her head. "I'm trying, but it's completely different from our technology." "Wait, I think they're trying to match our signal format." Suddenly, the dancing colors changed into words that appeared on the screen. "Welcome, travelers from the stars. We are the Vethany. We greet you in peace." Jake felt his heart race. After decades of searching, humanity had finally found intelligent life. "Send a reply," he ordered. "Tell them we come in peace and wish to meet them." The response came quickly. "We will guide your ship to our world. Follow the light." A soft golden beam appeared outside their ship, stretching toward the planet like a pathway made of pure light. Jake had never seen anything like it. The Discovery followed the beam down through the atmosphere, past floating cities that seemed to be made of crystal and light. They landed in a field of silver grass that moved like water in the wind. A group of beings approached the ship, and Jake got his first look at the Vethany. They were tall, almost 8 feet high, with long, graceful limbs. Their skin was pale and seemed to glow from within, shifting between soft blues and greens. They moved like dancers, each step flowing into the next. Jake put on his helmet and stepped out of the ship with Dr. Lisa Rodriguez, the team's scientist, and Alex Carter, their security chief. The Vethany stopped a respectful distance away, and one of them stepped forward. "I am Harmony Keeper Zephanara," the being said, its voice like music. "We have waited long for this day. Your species sends such interesting thoughts across the void." Dr. Rodriguez stepped forward, her scanner in hand. "Thoughts? You can read our minds?" Zephanara's skin shifted to a warm golden color. "Not read, but feel. Your emotions are so strong, so vivid. We sense great curiosity in you, and also ... caution. This is wise." Jake noticed that the alien's mouth didn't move when it spoke. The words seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere at once. "How are you speaking to us?" "We share thoughts directly," Zephanara explained. "But we have learned your sound speech from your transmissions. We find it fascinating how you trap ideas in air vibrations." Over the next few hours, the humans learned amazing things about the Vethany. They had no weapons, no armies, no police. They had not fought a war in over 3,000 years. When conflicts arose, they solved them through something they called harmony sessions, where all parties shared their emotions directly until they found common ground. "How do you deal with criminals?" Alex asked. His military training made him suspicious of any society without law enforcement. Zephanara's skin shifted to a confused purple. "Criminals? We do not understand this word." Dr. Rodriguez tried to explain. "People who hurt others, who steal, who break the rules of society. But why would someone choose to cause harm?" Another Vethany asked. "When you feel the pain you cause others, how could you continue?" Alex and Jake exchanged glances. These beings literally felt each other's emotions. Crime would be almost impossible in a society like that. The Vethany showed them through their city. Everything was grown rather than built. Buildings spiraled up like living trees, their walls glowing with soft light. There were no vehicles because the Vethany could manipulate matter at the molecular level, allowing them to travel by reshaping the ground beneath their feet. "Your technology is incredible," Dr. Rodriguez said as she watched a Vithani gardener encourage flowers to bloom with just a touch. "How did you develop such abilities?" "We learned to work with the natural forces rather than against them," Zephaniah explained. "Your species seems to prefer to break things apart to understand them. We prefer to grow things together." As the day went on, Jake noticed how the Vithani moved. Despite their peaceful nature, they were incredibly strong and fast. When one of them accidentally dropped a tool, another caught it with lightning reflexes. Their long limbs could stretch and bend in ways that seemed impossible. "They're natural athletes," Alex whispered to Jake. "With the right training, they could be formidable fighters." Jake shook his head. "Look at them, Alex. They couldn't hurt a fly even if they wanted to." That evening, the humans were invited to a harmony session. The Vethani sat in a circle, their skin glowing brighter as they shared their thoughts and feelings about the day's events. Jake found himself somehow included in the mental link, and he felt the aliens' pure joy and curiosity about meeting humanity. But he also sensed something else. Deep in their minds was a kind of innocence that worried him. These beings had never faced real danger. They had never had to fight for survival. Their entire civilization was built on the assumption that all intelligent life was as peaceful as they were. Dr. Rodriguez felt it too. "They're so vulnerable," she said quietly. "What would happen if they met a species that wasn't peaceful?" Elder Youthmela, the oldest Vithani present, seemed to hear her concern. "We know there are violent species in the galaxy," the ancient being said, "but we believe that peace is always possible. When beings see our way of life, they choose harmony over conflict." Jake wanted to believe that was true, but his experience with human nature made him doubtful. Not all conflicts could be resolved with empathy and understanding. Sometimes, force was the only language that aggressors understood. As the humans prepared to return to their ship for the night, Zephaniah approached Jake with a proposal. "Our council has decided to invite a group of your people to stay with us for 3 months. We wish to learn more about your species and share our knowledge with you." Jake thought about it. The opportunity to study an advanced alien civilization was incredible, but he also felt protective of these gentle beings. "We would be honored," he said finally. As the discovery settled in for the night, Jake stood at his window looking out at the glowing Vithani city. They were beautiful, advanced, and completely unprepared for the harsh realities of a galaxy where not every species chose peace. He had no way of knowing that in just 2 months, that harsh reality would come looking for them. 2 months had passed since the human delegation arrived on the Vethani homeworld. Jake Morrison had returned to Earth with most of his crew, leaving behind a small team to continue the cultural exchange. Alex Carter found himself enjoying the peaceful life more than he had expected. After 20 years in the military, the constant harmony of Vithani society was like a healing balm for his warrior's soul. Dr. Lisa Rodriguez had set up a research station in the Crystal Gardens, studying how the Vithani's empathic abilities worked. She discovered that their nervous systems were far more complex than human brains, with specialized organs that could detect and interpret emotional energy from other living beings. "It's like they have a sixth sense," she explained to Ben Thompson, a military strategist who had joined the team. "They can literally feel what others are feeling, sometimes from great distances." Ben nodded, but his attention was focused on the long-range sensors he had convinced the Vethani to install. His military training made him uncomfortable with their complete lack of defensive systems. "Has anyone ever tried to invade this world?" he asked Siltheda, a young Vethani who had become their primary liaison. Siltheda's skin shifted to a puzzled blue. "Invade? We do not understand this concept. Why would anyone want to take our world by force when we freely share everything we have?" "Because not everyone thinks like you do," Ben said gently. "Some species take what they want rather than asking for it. The conversation was interrupted by an urgent chime from the sensor array. Ben rushed to the display, his face growing pale as he read the data. "What is it?" Dr. Rodriguez asked. "Ships," Ben said grimly. "A lot of them, moving fast toward this system." Within an hour, the human team was gathered in the Vethany Council chambers. The great crystal dome pulsed with soft light as Elder Youthmela and the other council members tried to process what Ben was telling them. "The fleet consists of approximately 200 vessels," Ben reported. "Based on their energy signatures and formation patterns, they're military ships. They'll reach this system in 6 days." Kate Sullivan, the team's intelligence officer, had been analyzing the intercepted communications. "I've managed to decode some of their transmissions. They're called the Krexai. From what I can tell, they're a warrior species that conquers other worlds and enslaves the populations." The Vethany Council members looked at each other in confusion. Their skin patterns shifted through various colors as they tried to understand the concept of conquest. "Perhaps there has been a misunderstanding," Elder Youthmela said calmly. "We should open communication channels and invite them to discuss their intentions peacefully." Alex Carter shook his head. "With respect, Elder, these aren't the kind of beings you can reason with. The Krexai have a reputation throughout this part of the galaxy. They don't negotiate, they conquer. But surely they can be made to understand," insisted Harmony Keeper Zethanara. "When they see our way of life, when they feel the peace we have created here, they will choose cooperation over conflict." Ben pulled up holographic displays showing the Krexai's previous conquests. "They've enslaved 17 different species in the last century. Each time, the victims tried to negotiate first. It didn't work. The images showed destroyed cities, enslaved populations, and the brutal efficiency of the Krexai war machine." The Vethany Council members watched in horror, their skin patterns shifting to deep, troubled purples. "This cannot be real," whispered one of the younger council members. "No intelligent species would choose such brutality." "I'm afraid it is." "Real," Dr. Rodriguez said sadly. "There are species in the galaxy that see your peaceful nature and advanced technology as weakness to be exploited." Over the next 2 days, the Vethany tried their traditional approach to conflict resolution. They sent peaceful messages toward the approaching fleet, offering to share their technology and knowledge freely. They broadcast their most beautiful music and art, hoping to touch the hearts of the Krexai commanders. The response was swift and brutal. The Krexai jammed all communications and accelerated their approach. Scout ships began appearing at the edge of the system, clearly conducting reconnaissance for an invasion. Ben gathered the human team in their quarters. "We need to face facts. The Vethany are going to be conquered unless they learn to defend themselves." "But how?" Kate asked. "They've never fought a war. They don't even have weapons." "They have something better than weapons," Alex said thoughtfully. "They have abilities we can barely imagine. Did you see how fast Sylphida moved when that crystal fell yesterday? She caught it before it hit the ground, and it was falling from 30 feet up." Dr. Rodriguez nodded. "Their physical capabilities are incredible. Their reflexes, their strength, their ability to manipulate matter at the molecular level. If they could learn to use these abilities for combat. But they're psychologically incapable of violence," Ben pointed out. "Their entire nervous system is built around empathy and cooperation. Asking them to fight would be like asking humans to stop breathing." The breakthrough came when Sylphida approached them privately. Her skin was a deep, worried red, and her movements were more agitated than they had ever seen from a Vethany. "I have been thinking about what you said," she began hesitantly, "about the Krexai and what they do to other species. I have studied the images you showed us, and," Alex prompted gently. "I believe I understand now," Sylphida continued. "If we allow ourselves to be enslaved, we cannot help others. If we cannot help others, we cannot fulfill our purpose as beings of harmony. Ben leaned forward. What are you saying? I am saying that perhaps there are times when violence is necessary to preserve peace, Sylphida said, her skin shifting to a determined golden color. If we must learn to fight to protect our way of life, then we must learn. The next morning, Sylphida presented her arguments to the council. The debate that followed was unlike anything in Vethany history. For the first time in 3,000 years, they were discussing the possibility of violence. The humans offered to teach us their ways of war, Sylphida explained. Not because they enjoy conflict, but because they understand that sometimes peace must be defended with strength. Elder Youthmela was deeply troubled. To choose violence, even in defense, goes against everything we are. How can we remain Vethany if we embrace the ways of war? How can we remain Vethany if we allow ourselves to be enslaved? Sylphida countered. The Krexhai will not just conquer our bodies. They will destroy our culture, our values, our very way of being. The debate continued for hours. Some council members argued that death was preferable to abandoning their principles. Others insisted that their advanced technology could be used to hide or escape rather than fight. Finally, a compromise was reached. A volunteer force would be assembled from those Vethany who were willing to learn human combat techniques. They would not be required to abandon their peaceful nature, but they would learn to set it aside when necessary to protect their people. Ben Thompson was chosen to lead the training program. As he looked at the group of 30 volunteers who had stepped forward, he felt a mixture of hope and concern. These beings had never thrown a punch, never fired a weapon, never even raised their voices in anger. Can we really turn them into soldiers in just 4 days? Kate asked quietly. We have to, Ben replied, because if we can't, their entire civilization is going to disappear. As the Krexhai fleet drew closer, the peaceful world of the Vethany, the training ground, was a flat field of silver grass outside the main Vethany city. Ben Thompson stood before 30 volunteers, the first Vethani in 3,000 years to willingly learn the arts of war. Their skin patterns shifted nervously, between blue and purple, as they waited for their first lesson. Fighting is not about anger, Ben began, his voice calm and steady. It's about survival. Today, you learn to survive. The first attempts were disasters. When Ben showed them how to throw a punch, the Vethany pulled back at the last second, unable to make contact, even with practiced targets. Their empathic abilities made them feel the imagined pain of their opponents, paralyzing them with compassion. Sylphida was the first to break through. On the third day, she managed to strike a training dummy with her full force. The wooden post exploded into splinters, surprising everyone, including herself. I focused on protecting my people, she explained to the other volunteers. I imagined the Krexhai hurting the younglings in the nursery gardens. The anger overcame the empathy. Dr. Rodriguez had been studying the Vethany's abilities during the training. I think I understand the problem, she told Ben. Their empathic organs are constantly active. But what if we could teach them to redirect that ability? She worked with Alex Carter to develop a new training method. Instead of trying to suppress their empathy, they taught the Vethany to use it as a weapon. By focusing on their opponent's intentions rather than their pain, they could predict attacks before they happened. The breakthrough came when young Vel Karn, barely an adult by Vethani standards, successfully blocked a series of attacks from Alex while blindfolded. I could feel where you were going to strike, he said excitedly. Your intentions were like bright lights in my mind. Ben realized they had discovered something revolutionary. You're not just learning to fight, he told the volunteers. You're learning to fight better than any species in the galaxy. The Vethany's physical advantages became apparent as their psychological barriers fell. Their elongated limbs could stretch to incredible lengths, allowing them to attack from unexpected angles. Their skin could harden into natural armor when they were threatened. Most importantly, their ability to manipulate matter at the molecular level could be weaponized. Sullivan worked with the Vethany engineers to convert their peaceful technology into instruments of war. Their matter manipulation devices, originally designed for gardening and construction, could be modified to disintegrate enemy weapons and armor. Their transportation networks could be turned into traps, and their communication systems could be used to jam enemy signals. "We're not just teaching them to fight," Kate reported to Ben. "We're helping them become the most dangerous species in the galaxy." The transformation was not without cost. Many Vethany volunteers became physically ill when they first successfully harmed a practice dummy. Their skin would shift to deep, troubled purples, and some would need hours of meditation to recover their emotional balance. Elder Youthmela visited the training ground on the fourth day, watching with sad eyes as his. "People learn to be warriors. We are losing something precious," he said to Ben. "The innocence that has defined us for millennia." "But you're gaining something more important," Ben replied. "The ability to protect that innocence for future generations." As the training continued, the Vethany developed their own fighting styles that incorporated their unique abilities. They learned to change their skin color for camouflage, to stretch their limbs for surprising attacks, and to use their empathic senses to coordinate without verbal communication. Sylphida emerged as a natural leader among the volunteers. Her skin had permanently shifted to a determined golden color, and her movements had gained a deadly grace that was both beautiful and terrifying. She could sense enemy intentions from 50 meters away and move with speed that made her appear to teleport. "I feel like I'm becoming someone else," she confided to Dr. Rodriguez. "The peaceful Vethany I was before seems like a distant memory." "You're not becoming someone else," Dr. Rodriguez assured her. "You're becoming what your people need you to be." The capacity for violence was always there, hidden beneath your peaceful nature. The other volunteers looked to Sylphida for guidance, and she found herself naturally taking on a leadership role. She organized them into small teams, each with complementary abilities. Some specialized in long-range attacks, using their matter manipulation technology. Others focused on close combat, using their enhanced physical abilities. A few became scouts, using their empathic senses to track enemy movements. On the sixth day, as the Krex High fleet entered the outer system, the 30 volunteers had become something unprecedented. Warrior empaths who could feel their enemies' intentions and respond with deadly precision. Ben gathered the volunteers for their final briefing. "The Krex High will arrive in orbit within hours," he said. "They expect to find a defenseless world full of pacifists. Instead, they're going to find something they've never encountered before." The volunteers stood in formation, their skin patterns now showing the deep gold of determination mixed with the silver of readiness. They were no longer the same beings who had volunteered just a week ago. They had become something new. Vithany, who could choose peace from a position of strength. Sylphida stepped forward to address her team. "We fight not because we enjoy violence, but because we must protect what we love. Remember that every Krex High soldier you face is someone who has chosen to bring suffering to innocent beings. Show them the same mercy they would show our younglings." The volunteers dispersed to their positions throughout the city and surrounding areas. Some took up positions in the crystal spires, ready to use their elevated vantage points for long-range attacks. Others moved to the underground tunnels, preparing to use the Vethany's transportation network for guerrilla warfare. Dr. Rodriguez watched them go with a mixture of pride and sadness. "We've created something beautiful and terrible," she said. To Ben, "We've created survivors," Ben replied. "And sometimes that's what the universe demands." As the first Krex High dropships appeared in the sky, the transformed Vethany took their positions. The most peaceful species in the galaxy was about to show the universe what they had learned from humanity, that sometimes the only way to preserve peace is to be willing to fight for it. The battle was about to begin, and the galaxy would never be the same. The HFY fleet emerged from hyperspace like a swarm of metal locusts, their dark ships blotting out the stars. Admiral Vickmer stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching the peaceful blue world grow larger on his screens. His insectoid features twisted into what passed for a smile among his species. Another easy conquest, he clicked to his officers. The Vithani are known throughout the galaxy for their weakness. This will be over in hours. The HFY had conquered 17 worlds using the same tactics. Overwhelming force, brutal efficiency, and the complete demoralization of their enemies. They had studied the Vithani for months, learning about their peaceful nature and their complete lack of military technology. But they had not accounted for the changes that 32 humans had brought to this world. The first sign that something was wrong came when the HFY tried to jam the planet's communications. Instead of the expected shutdown, their signals were somehow redirected and amplified, creating a feedback loop that damaged several of their own ships. What happened? Admiral Vickmer demanded. Unknown, sir, his communications officer replied. It's as if they turned our own jamming signals into weapons. On the planet's surface, Kate Sullivan smiled as she watched the HFY fleet struggle with their damaged systems. The Vithani had modified their communication networks in ways the invaders couldn't have imagined, turning their peaceful technology into electronic warfare tools. The real surprise came when the HFY sent their first wave of dropships toward the planet. The ships descended through the atmosphere, expecting to find defenseless cities filled with cowering civilians. Instead, they found empty streets and an eerie silence. Where are they? Muttered Captain Zektal as his troops deployed from their Zir. Landed ships. The intelligence reports said this city housed over 1 million beings. The answer came from the shadows. Sylphida and her team had been waiting in the crystal spires, their skin camouflaged to match the glowing walls. When the HFY soldiers spread out to search the buildings, the Vithani struck. The first HFY to die never saw his attacker. Sylphida dropped from above, her skin shifting to mirror the sky, and struck with precision that would have impressed any human soldier. Her elongated limbs moved faster than the eye could follow, and her empathic abilities let her anticipate every move her opponent might make. But it was the sight of her using her matter manipulation abilities as a weapon that truly terrified. The HFY. She touched the soldier's armor, and it simply dissolved, leaving him defenseless. A second touch to his weapon made it crumble to dust. Contact, contact. Captain Zektal screamed into his radio. We're under attack by unknown hostiles. The HFY had trained to fight many types of enemies, but never beings who could feel their intentions before they acted on them. Every ambush was detected. Every surprise attack was anticipated. The Vithani moved through the city like ghosts, striking without warning and disappearing before the HFY could respond. Vel Karn and his team used the underground transport tunnels to move unseen beneath the city. They would emerge behind enemy lines, eliminate their targets, and vanish before reinforcements could arrive. The HFY found themselves fighting an enemy that seemed to be everywhere and nowhere at once. In orbit. Admiral Vickmer watched his casualty reports with growing alarm. How are we losing soldiers to a species that has no military? He demanded. His answer came when the Vithani space defenses came online. The converted ships, hastily armed with matter disintegration weapons, emerged from hidden positions throughout the system. They moved with a grace and coordination that no HFY commander had ever seen, their pilots somehow able to anticipate enemy movements and respond instantly. The first HFY cruiser to be destroyed never fired a shot. A Vethany fighter, piloted by a being who could feel the enemy captain's intentions, simply appeared behind it and fired a concentrated beam of molecular disruption. The massive warship came apart like a house of cards. Impossible. Admiral Vekmer roared. No species learned space combat in a few days. But the Vethany weren't just learning human tactics. They were improving on them. Their empathic abilities allowed them to coordinate their attacks with perfect timing, while their matter manipulation technology gave them weapons that could destroy any ship with a single hit. Ben Thompson watched the battle from the command center, hardly able to believe what he was seeing. "They're not just fighting," he said to Dr. Rodriguez. "They're revolutionizing warfare itself." The Vethany had developed tactics that no human military strategist had ever considered. They used their ability to change their skin color for perfect camouflage, their empathic senses to coordinate without radio communication, and their matter manipulation skills to turn the environment itself into a weapon. One group of Vethany defenders, led by a volunteer named Kethrol, discovered they could reshape the city's crystal structures to create instant fortifications. Buildings flowed like liquid, forming defensive walls and firing positions that appeared and disappeared as needed. The Krex High, accustomed to facing conventional enemies, found themselves completely outmatched. Their standard shock and awe tactics were useless against opponents who could sense their intentions and respond with abilities that seemed like magic. "Sir, we're losing ships faster than we can count them," reported the fleet's tactical officer. "The enemy pilots seem to know what we're going to do before we do it." Admiral Vekmer's insectoid features twisted with rage and fear. In 30 years of conquest, he had never faced an enemy like this. All ships, full bombardment of the planet's surface. If we can't conquer them, we'll destroy them. But even this desperate tactic failed. The Vethany had turned their peaceful city into a fortress that could defend itself. The crystal spires absorbed the energy from the orbital bombardment and redirected it harmlessly into the planet's core. What should have been a devastating attack only made the city's defenses stronger. On the ground, Sylphita coordinated the final phase of the battle. Her skin had shifted to a brilliant gold that seemed to burn with inner fire, and her movements had gained a deadly beauty that was both mesmerizing and terrifying. "All teams, begin the pursuit," she ordered, her voice carrying to every Vethany fighter through their empathic link. "Do not let them escape to threaten other worlds." The Krex High fleet, recognizing that they were facing defeat, began to retreat. But the Vethany had learned another lesson from their human teachers: the importance of total victory. They pursued the fleeing ships, systematically hunting down and destroying each one. Alex Carter watched the space battle with professional admiration. "They're not just defending themselves," he observed. "They're making sure this never happens." Again, the battle ended with the capture of Admiral Vekmer's flagship. The Krex High commander found himself face to face with Sylphita, who had boarded his ship with a team of Vethany warriors. "You came here expecting to find victims," Sylphita sighed, her skin shifting to a cold, angry red. "Instead, you found beings who learned that peace must be defended." Admiral Vekmer looked at this creature who had defeated his entire fleet, and for the first time in his life, he felt true fear. "What are you?" he whispered. "We are Vethany," Sylphita replied. "We are peacekeepers, and we are done being victims." The most peaceful species in the galaxy had won their first war. But more importantly, they had discovered that they could choose when to be peaceful and when to be warriors. The transformation was complete, and the galaxy would never be the same. 3 months after the humans first arrived on the Vethany homeworld, the galaxy had changed forever. Word of the Krex High defeat spread through the star systems like wildfire, carrying with it a message that no one had expected: the peaceful Vethany had become warriors. Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the HFY Discovery as it approached the Vithani homeworld for the second time. The planet looked the same from orbit, but he knew that everything had changed. The readings from his sensors told a story of transformation that still amazed him. "Sir, we're getting a greeting signal," reported Lieutenant Amy Davis. "But it's different from before." Instead of the gentle, dancing lights they had received on their first visit, the signal was sharp and precise. It carried the same warmth as before, but now there was strength behind it. The message was clear. "Welcome back, allies. We are ready to receive you." Jake smiled. The Vithani had learned to communicate like diplomats rather than innocent children. As the Discovery landed, Jake was greeted by a sight that took his breath away. The Vithani who met them still moved with their characteristic grace, but now they carried themselves with quiet confidence. Their skin patterns showed the deep gold of determination mixed with the silver of readiness. Sylphida approached the landing ramp, and Jake hardly recognized her. The young, curious being he had left behind had become something magnificent and slightly terrifying. Her skin glowed with inner strength, and her eyes held the wisdom of someone who had faced death and emerged victorious. "Captain Morrison," she said, her voice carrying new authority. "Much has changed since you left us." Jake nodded, looking around at the city that had become a fortress. The crystal spires now pulsed with defensive energy, and he could see Vithani. "Sentries positioned at strategic points. I can see that. The reports we received were ... incredible." "Come," Sylphida said. "The Council wishes to speak with you." The council chambers had been rebuilt since the battle. The great crystal dome now served as both a meeting place and a command center, with displays showing the movements of ships throughout the local star systems. Elder Youth Mela still sat at the center, but his role had changed. He was no longer just a keeper of peace, but a guardian of it. "Captain Morrison," the elder said, his skin shifting to a welcoming blue. "We owe your species a debt that can never be repaid. You taught us that peace is not the absence of conflict, but the strength to defend what we cherish." Jake looked around the chamber at the assembled Vithani. Mixed among the traditional council members were new faces, wearing insignia that marked them as military leaders. The transformation was complete, but it had not destroyed their essential nature. "What will you do now?" Jake asked. Sylphida stepped forward, her skin shifting to the proud gold of someone who had found her purpose. "We have created something new. We call it the Harmony Guard. We will use our abilities to protect not just our own world, but other peaceful species throughout the galaxy." Dr. Rodriguez, who had remained behind to study the changes in Vithani society, presented her findings to the council. "What we've witnessed is unprecedented in galactic history. A species has completely transformed its approach to conflict while maintaining its core values." The proof of this transformation was already evident. In the weeks following the Krex High defeat, 3 different species had contacted the Vithani asking for protection. All were peaceful civilizations that had been threatened by aggressive neighbors. "The Miliki are a species of artists and philosophers," Sylphida explained, showing holographic displays of their crystal cities. "They've been threatened by the Vorthan Empire for decades. We've agreed to provide them with protection." Ben Thompson, who had remained as a strategic advisor, outlined the new military doctrine they had developed. "It's unlike anything I've seen in human military history. They've combined their natural abilities with human tactical thinking to create something entirely new." The Vithani had developed what they called protective peace, a philosophy that embraced both compassion and strength. They would always prefer negotiation and understanding, but they would never again allow themselves or their allies to be victims of aggression. "We have learned that true peace requires the power to enforce it," Elder Youth Mela explained. "We will offer our hand in friendship to all who come in peace, but we will show no mercy to those who choose violence against the innocent. The changes went beyond military capability. The Vithani had restructured their entire society to balance their peaceful nature with their new role as protectors. They had created academies where young Vithani could learn both traditional harmony practices and combat techniques. They had established a council of war harmonies, led by Sylphida, who could make rapid decisions during crisis. Kate Sullivan had worked with them to create an intelligence network that spanned dozens of star systems. They're not just reactive anymore, she reported. They're actively seeking out threats to peaceful civilizations and stopping them before they can cause harm. The results were already visible across the galaxy. The Vorthan Empire, which had been preparing to invade the Naleki homeworld, had abruptly canceled their plans when they learned that the Vethani were now protecting them. 2 other aggressive species had similarly backed down from planned conquests when word of the Krexhai defeat reached them. You've created something that might change the balance of power in this entire region of space, Jake observed. That is our hope, Sylphida replied. For too long, peaceful species have lived in fear of those who choose violence. We intend to change that. Alex Carter had been training a new generation of Vethani warriors, and the results amazed even him. They learned faster than any human soldiers I've ever worked with, he told Jake. Their empathic abilities give them advantages that no other species can match. They can sense enemy intentions, coordinate without communication, and adapt to new situations instantly. But perhaps the most remarkable change was how the Vini had maintained their essential nature while embracing their new role. They still valued harmony above all else, but now they understood that harmony sometimes required strength to maintain it. We have not become a species of warriors, Elder Youthmila emphasized. We have become a species that can choose when to be warriors. The difference is everything. The transformation extended to their technology as well. Their matter manipulation abilities had been refined into incredibly sophisticated weapons and defenses. Their empathic communication networks now served as early warning systems that could detect aggressive intentions from light years away. Dr. Rodriguez had documented how their society had adapted. They've created a perfect balance, she explained. In peacetime, they remain the same gentle, harmony-seeking beings they've always been. But when threatened, they can transform into the most efficient military force in the galaxy. As Jake prepared to return to Earth, Sylphida presented him with a formal proposal. We wish to establish a permanent alliance with humanity. You taught us to defend ourselves, and now we offer to help defend others alongside you. The proposal was remarkable in its scope. The Vethani offered to share their advanced technology with human colonies, provide protection for human exploration, missions, and work together to maintain peace throughout the galaxy. Your species showed us that peace and strength are not opposites, Sylphida continued. They are partners. We would be honored to be your partners as well. Jake accepted the proposal gladly. An alliance between human tactical thinking and Vethani abilities would create a force for peace that no aggressive species could challenge. As the Discovery prepared to depart, Jake took one last look at the transformed world. The crystal cities still glowed with their gentle light, but now that light was backed by the strength to protect it. Children still played in the silver grass fields, but now they played under the protection of guardians who would never let them be harmed. The most peaceful species in the galaxy had learned the hardest lesson of all, that sometimes the only way to preserve peace is to be willing to fight for it. And they had learned it from the one species that understood that lesson best. Captain, Amy Davis said from her station, we're receiving a message from the Galactic Council. They want to arrange a meeting with both human and Vethani representatives. Jake smiled. The galaxy's power structure was shifting, and everyone knew it. The age of helpless victims was ending, replaced by an era where peace would be protected by those strong enough to defend it. As the Discovery jumped to hyperspace, carrying news of the new alliance back to Earth, the Vithani continued their transformation. They had become something unprecedented, a species that chose peace from a position of strength, rather than accepting it from a position of weakness. 3 months with humans had changed them forever. But in changing them, humanity had also changed. The galaxy itself. The future would be different now, shaped by the understanding that true peace required both the desire for harmony and the strength to protect it. The transformation was complete, and the galaxy would never be the same.